Every parent imagines what their baby's first word will be. I imagined Papa, maybe Dada, if I was being realistic about how these things usually go. I never once imagined it would be my 12-year-old son's name. But that's exactly what happened.
On an ordinary Tuesday evening, in a moment none of us were even filming, my name is Ryan Mitchell.
And this is the story of the night my daughter's first word told our entire family. Something we already knew in our hearts, but had never heard said out loud quite like that before.
Our daughter, Lily, was 7 months old now, a small, determined bundle of energy who had already figured out how to make her opinions known long before she had the words to express them. She babbled constantly, a steady stream of ba-ba-ba and da-da-da sounds that Sarah and I had been eagerly, hopefully, analyzing for weeks, convinced that any day now, an actual word might emerge. Jake had taken to his role as big brother with a seriousness that still occasionally caught me off guard. He read to Lily most evenings, elaborate bedtime stories about volcanoes and dinosaurs that she couldn't possibly understand, but seemed to love anyway, cooing and grabbing at the pages with delighted enthusiasm. That particular Tuesday, Jake was home from school, doing homework at the kitchen table, while Lily sat nearby in her bouncer, watching him with the intense focus babies reserve for the people they adore most. "Hey, Lily," Jake said, glancing over from his math worksheet. "Want to see something cool?" He held up his pencil, spinning it between his fingers in the small trick he'd been practicing for weeks, something that never failed to captivate his sister's attention. Lily's eyes tracked the movement, her small hands reaching out toward him with the enthusiastic grabbing motion that had become her primary form of communication. Sarah was in the kitchen nearby, prepping dinner, half listening to the easy back and forth between her two children, with the particular contentment of a parent overhearing something sweet without needing to interrupt it. "You're going to be doing way cooler tricks than this someday," Jake told her, setting the pencil down and picking her up instead, settling her against his hip the way he'd learned to do with careful confidence over the past several months. "Way cooler than volcano models, probably," Lily babbled happily in response, her small hand patting his cheek. I walked in from work just as this was happening, pausing in the doorway to take in the ordinary, lovely scene. My son holding my daughter, both of them completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to my arrival. "Say hi to Papa," Jake told her, turning slightly so she could see me. "Papa's home." Lily looked toward me, then back at Jake, then made a small, focused sound. Not quite babble, more deliberate than that. "Ja," she said, and then, more clearly, gaining confidence with the repetition. "Ja, Jay." The kitchen went quiet. Sarah turned from the stove, spatula still in hand. Jake froze, staring down at his sister with wide eyes. "Did she just—" he started. "Jay," Lily said again, delighted now, patting his cheek with renewed enthusiasm, clearly proud of whatever sound she'd just successfully produced. "She said your name," Sarah said, setting down the spatula entirely now, crossing the kitchen to get a closer look. "Jake, she just said your name." That's probably just a coincidence," Jake said, though his voice had gone slightly unsteady, his usual careful composure cracking around the edges. "Babies make random sounds all the time, right?" "Jay," Lily repeated, definitively, patting his face again with the clear satisfaction of a baby who has just discovered something works exactly the way she intended it to. I crossed the kitchen too now, standing beside them both, watching my daughter's small, triumphant face. "I don't think that's a coincidence, buddy. I think that might genuinely be her first word." Jake stood very still for a long moment, Lily still perched happily on his hip, patting his cheek and repeating her new favorite sound with increasing confidence. Her first word was my name, he said quietly, almost to himself, like he was still processing the weight of it. Not mama, not papa, mine. His eyes filled with tears. The same careful, embarrassed tears he'd shed during the pregnancy announcement months earlier, except this time, there was no fear underneath them, just pure, uncomplicated emotion. I think that tells you something pretty important, Sarah said gently, resting a hand on his shoulder. About how much she already adores you. I didn't even know babies could pick favorites this early, Jake said, laughing through his tears now, clearly overwhelmed in the best possible way. They can't, not really, I said. But I think it tells you she already recognizes who shows up for her every single day without being asked to. That evening, Jake insisted on calling Emily to share the news himself, practically bursting with the significance of it before she'd even finished saying hello. Mom, guess what happened? He said, not waiting for her to guess. Lily said her first word today. It was my name. There was a brief pause on the other end before Emily's voice came through, warm and clearly moved. Jake, that's incredible. How does it feel, being somebody's first word? Really good, Jake admitted, his earlier embarrassment fully gone now, replaced with unguarded pride. Like maybe I'm actually as important to her as I've been trying to be. You've always been that important, Emily told him. To her, to your dad, to Sarah. This just made it a little more official, that's all. After Lily had been put down for the night, still occasionally murmuring her triumphant new word into the quiet of her nursery, Sarah and I found Jake sitting on his bedroom floor, going through an old photo album from when he was Lily's age, the same one Emily had given him years earlier on her first attempt at reconciliation. What are you doing, bud? I asked, leaning against his doorframe. Just looking, Jake said, trying to remember what it felt like being that little. I don't really remember it, obviously, but it's weird to think Lily's going to grow up not remembering any of this either. How excited we all were tonight. All of it. That's true, Sarah said, sitting down beside him. But we'll remember it for her. And someday, when she's old enough to understand, we'll tell her the story of the night she chose her big brother's name as her very first word. Jake smiled, closing the photo album gently. I like that. I like being part of her story from the very beginning. I think about that Tuesday evening often. How an ordinary moment, homework at the kitchen table and a spinning pencil trick, turned into one of the clearest confirmations our unconventional family has ever received. Not through a grand gesture or a planned speech, but through one small, insistent syllable, repeated with a baby's stubborn joy. If you've ever needed proof that you belong exactly where you are, if you've ever wondered whether the people who love you truly see how much you matter to them, I want you to know, sometimes the smallest voices tell us the biggest truths, long before we're ready to hear them. If this story moved you, let me know in the comments. And if you have a story of your own, share it below. It might just become our next episode. This is Silent Love. And this was a story about being someone's very first word.